Murder at Ocean View College. Chapter 23. Monday afternoon meeting. There was a regular meeting on Monday afternoons for student police officers, and everyone in the department was required to attend. Danny arrived at the meeting a couple of minutes late. He sat at one of the few empty desks near the back of the room and against the wall. He leaned his head against the wall and looked around at the full room. Captain Mitchell was talking, and Danny tried to listen to, but he was distracted. He could see the back of Jade's head. He recognized her long black hair that was coming loose from under her police cap. She was sitting near the front with Crystal, and they probably didn't even know he was there. He sighed and rubbed his hands over his face. Captain Mitchell talked on. And another thing, there have been several reports of theft and vandalism in the parking lots, especially during sports events. There were a couple of broken car windows last Friday night at the football game. There were also reports of stolen CD and tape players. Now, I forget, who was working last Friday night? Jade was attending the meeting in body only. Her mind was still with Amber. She remembered questions that she should have asked, but didn't. She was also trying to figure out how to tell Captain Mitchell. Or, she thought, maybe she didn't have to. Maybe Amber would turn herself in. Then again, probably not. It would be up to Jade to tell Captain Mitchell. But how? Her head hurt. She would figure this out. She just couldn't do it right now. Suddenly, she felt a poke in her ribs. She turned to look at Crystal. Crystal poked her again and started to speak. Captain Mitchell, I was actually scheduled to work, but traded with Officer Lee. She worked last Friday night. Jade drew her attention back immediately. Yes, sir. I was on duty Friday night. Captain Mitchell asked, well, did you see anything unusual during the game while you were on duty? She wanted to say, yes, I saw my boyfriend out with another girl and she kissed him, but she held her tongue and thought a minute. Oh yes, the parking lot, the flashlight, the car roaring away. Actually, Captain, I did. Sorry, I didn't report it. It was late, and with the weekend in between, I completely forgot. The police captain looked at her strangely for a minute. Then he spoke. What happened? He asked, rather sharply. Jade wet her lips with her tongue before she started to speak. Well, it was near the end of the game, and I was making rounds. I didn't see anything until I got to about, she paused for a minute, aisle 5. I heard a noise and saw a flashlight. I went to investigate, but whoever it was flashed the light right in my eyes, and I couldn't see. They got away. She paused again before continuing. I did hear one of them calling to the other. He called him Tom. Danny, sitting in the back, had closed his eyes for a minute, but opened them again when he heard Jade's voice. He hadn't talked to her in several days. He was wondering if he would ever hear her voice again. She always spoke so softly. He started to lean forward because he didn't want to miss one word. He leaned forward, straining to hear, until the student desk he was sitting in crashed to the floor. Everyone in the room turned to see what had made such a noise. Jade turned with the others and found herself staring straight into Danny's eyes. She watched as his face grew bright red. Danny tore his eyes away from Jade and got up from the floor. He picked up the desk and set it upright again before he sat down. He could hear laughter from several places in the room, but he tried to ignore it. At the front of the room, Captain Mitchell looked at the red-faced student, too. "Soto, are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," Danny's voice came out in a near whisper. He cleared his throat and spoke louder. "Sorry, Captain. You know how unsteady these desks are." "Yes. Now, as you were saying, Officer Lee," and he turned his attention back to Jade, who finished her story quickly and then was quiet. She tried to listen as the captain returned to his notes and mentioned several other matters that were important to the student police force. The chancellor reported that someone had parked in his reserved parking space 3 times last week. Officers on duty in the morning must now put orange plastic cones in that space to stop students and teachers from parking in the chancellor's parking space. Also, the cafeteria reported 20 sets of silverware missing in 1 day last week. The cooking school thinks it might be the football team. Any officers who happen to be in the cafeteria should keep their eyes open and report any theft. But remember, he said, you can only... The entire group of students interrupted him together like a chorus. Direct traffic, write tickets, and respond to emergencies. They finished his sentence, and laughter broke out in the room. The captain didn't laugh, but said, "I'm glad you know something about your job." When the meeting was ready to break up, one of the students raised a hand and asked the captain a question. "What is happening with Ms. Quinn's murder investigation?" The captain raised his voice to be heard above the sliding chairs and general confusion as some students prepared to leave. "There is no new information on the murder, but I want to remind you that as student police officers, you are not allowed to participate in this investigation." Students began to walk out of the room, but Captain Mitchell spoke again. "I would like to see Officers Soto, Lee, and Jackson, please, right now."